Myeshia Johnson was given an American flag by a member of a military honor guard during the burial service for her husband. 2 months before Sergeant David T. Johnson died in an ambush in Niger, he told his sister in an hour-long video chat that he was ready to come home. He wanted to see his children again and return to his wife, then 4 months pregnant with their third child. He was ready, said Torneisha Ghent, 24, who along with her brother grew up in Carroll City, a neighborhood in North Miami-Dade County. But Sergeant Johnson remained committed to his role as an Army mechanic serving the 3rd Special Forces Group as part of a mission to train African troops in the fight against terrorism. He told friends and family he wanted to help his team. He also needed the money to buy a home for his growing family. Sign up for the morning briefing newsletters. Ghent would never see her brother again. Weeks after their last exchange, Sergeant Johnson's family learned that he had disappeared in a firefight. Days later, they learned of his death after an ambush. And then came the controversy over President Trump's call to Sergeant Johnson's widow, Myeshia Johnson, and the swirling feud that followed involving the president, his chief of staff, John F. Kelly, Ms. Johnson, and Representative Frederica S. Wilson, Democrat of Florida, over what was said in the call. Yet many who knew the slain soldier now lament that Sergeant Johnson's story has gotten lost amid the flurry of criticism and accusations. The bitter back and forth is a marked contrast to his life, which family, friends and fellow soldiers say was characterized by kindness and an optimism that allowed him to rise above a tough upbringing, when so much around him seemed set on keeping him down. Sergeant Johnson, who was 25 when he died, grew up in a gritty suburb with some of the highest crime and poverty levels in Florida. One of its few distinctions was having one of the highest police stop and frisk rates in the country. He watched his mother suffer for years with tuberculosis before she died when he was 5 years old. His father was mostly absent. His sister said that while many of his peers dropped out of school and drifted into crime, Sergeant Johnson remained focused and upbeat, becoming known around Miami as the Wheelie King, often seen riding his BMX bike for miles on end, balanced only on his rear wheel. He was so good he eventually took off the front wheel entirely. He went on to work as a produce stocker at Walmart, a job he kept during high school and until he joined the Army. Those who served with Sergeant Johnson said he wanted to provide the best life possible for his family and managed to turn his early knack for fixing things into a successful military career. Within 3 years he was a sergeant. He would always mess with the screwdrivers and the pliers. The cars and trucks that my grandmother used to buy him, he would take them apart and put them back together. Ms. Ghent recalled, while in the Army, Sergeant Johnson taught himself how to cut hair, using his handiness and instructions from YouTube videos to become an unofficial barber for his Special Forces battalion, doing fades for $5 a pop. He would cut all the Africans' hair. He had a little setup in his tent. He bought a bicycle and he took the wheel off of it and was riding in Africa with one tire, said Staff Sergeant Dennis Bowler, who supervised Sergeant Johnson during training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and became a close friend. The two men bonded over the fact they were both from Miami, and Sergeant Johnson often messaged Sergeant Bowler during his second tour in Niger. "We had the same culture growing up and knew the struggles that came about by just trying to get out of there," Sergeant Bowler said. Sergeant Johnson lived with an aunt and then an uncle after his mother's death and joined a mentoring program for young neighborhood boys, called the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence Project. Ms. Wilson, the founder of the program, remained close to the Johnson family and had accompanied his widow to greet his body when Mr. Trump called. Frequent Facebook posts from 2010, the year he graduated from Miami Carroll City Senior High School, and later show Sergeant Johnson's life then largely consisted of shifts at Walmart, working out at the gym, going to church, cooking for his family and tricking out his green 1995 Toyota Corolla, adding neon lights and bone-shaking 15-inch speakers. Small resume about me. He wrote on Facebook in 2012. I don't drink nor smoke. Never got arrested. Got a job. Got my own crib. Got my own car. Got my own music business. I love music. He met his wife when he was 6 years old and later had her name tattooed across his chest. He always loved to have fun, laugh and joke around, and help others, said Isaac Hodgson, who is also in the mentoring program and on the wrestling team with Sergeant Johnson. Posts from his life in Carroll City also show he was stopped by the police repeatedly for little reason, but he never seemed to let it get him down. Think big, think positive, think smart, think beautiful. He posted in 2012. That year he first tried to join the Army, but failed the language section aptitude test by a few points. According to a post, he studied and eventually passed. Soon after he met Sergeant Bowler and both men and their wives became friends. Sergeant Bowler, who now lives in Fort Lee in Virginia, remembers driving around for hours in 2014 as Sergeant Johnson looked for a home before he finally decided to live on Bass. Their families often ate Sunday dinners together, with both Sergeant Johnson and his wife cooking Thanksgiving-style meals of ham, macaroni and cheese, and pies. The couples celebrated when both wives found out they were pregnant with girls and due a few days apart. Sergeant Johnson and his wife, due in January, quickly began planning for the new baby and for life with their other two children, a young girl and boy. When he found out they were having a girl, he was very excited. He had already named the baby Angeline, Bowler said, adding that Sergeant Johnson didn't see the mission in Niger as dangerous because his first deployment went smoothly. Staff Sergeant Charles Taylor Jr., who also supervised Sergeant Johnson and escorted his body home from Niger, called him an outstanding soldier. The two last talked the day Sergeant Johnson and the team of Green Berets headed out on their fateful patrol. I told him I know you can make it and to train up, Sergeant Taylor said. It was the last thing the two would ever talk about. Sergeant Johnson and 3 other soldiers would soon be dead.